What's up, gamers? Dreamcastguy here, and today we need to have a little bit of a technical talk, which is about the rules and the idea of Game of the Year 2020. There's actually been a bit of a debate online as to what can qualify for Game of the Year, because this year has been very, very different. Now, we need to try and break this down, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I will be doing my own personal picks for Game of the Year. Now, if you're a new subscriber, or you're somebody that just randomly stumbled on this video or something, basically what I do is every single year, I end up doing a separate video that's going to be the worst games of the year, the 10 best games of the year, and then I also do a thing that's like 10 best surprises, which is kind of my way of basically telling you 10 more great games, because a lot of times there's a lot of games that deserve to be talked about that kind of slip through the cracks. But in 2020, things have been very, very strange. We have, of course, had a lot of stealth releases. We had some really good indie games like Hades. Everybody's been talking about Hades. I just started playing it myself, and it is pretty dang decent. But I have noticed a lot of people are also kind of confused about the fact that with the new generation, we are seeing a lot of like remakes and just stuff like that. So here is going to be my idea. Basically, I think that anything that comes out in 2020 needs to be considered for Game of the Year. But here's the tough part. Let's look at this real quick. This is the Game of the Year awards by the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's show. Their picks for best games of the year so far are Animal Crossing, Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and The Last of Us Part 2. Now, some of these I agree with, some of these I don't agree with. Obviously, I'm not really a fan of The Last of Us Part 2, but I have seen some people debating the idea of what can actually make it. Like, specifically two games I've seen the most debate about is Persona 5 Royale. This is a bit of a remake. If you haven't played Persona 5 Royale, this is the entire original Persona 5, but with additional characters, changed up quests, new character models, and an extra giant dungeon at the end of the game. It's a lot of extra time. Like, completely, it's about an extra 10 to 20 hours of content. But some people say that this is just a really fancy DLC. Does this even count as a remake? Does this qualify? Or something I've seen all the Nintendo fans yelling about, and I actually think that they're kind of right, is Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Now, I reviewed this game. I actually completely loved it. This has so much added content. Does this qualify as a new game? Or something else I've seen people say is, when does Game of the Year take place? When does it cut off? So here's my rules. I'm going to actually establish the rules themselves, and you'll know this is how it's going to work for me. Any game released in 2020 by December 10th counts as my awards. And here's the thing. I'm doing this straight up just to be completely transparent here. I'm doing this because of Cyberpunk 2077. That's why I set the date as December 10th. I'm going to beat Cyberpunk, and then I'm going to sit down and do my considerations for the Game of the Year, because that is going to be a major release this year, but additionally, I think it deserves qualification. Normally, my cutoff for the last couple of years has been December 1st. Normally, I would measure it from December 1st to the next December 1st. That is my year for measurement. But we're going to push it back because I think that trying to do a best games of 2020 list and not talking about Cyberpunk would be a little bit disingenuous. But to go one step further, I think that any game released this year absolutely counts. So yes, I am going to consider things like Persona 5. I am going to consider things like, I know some people are trying to say that Animal Crossing doesn't deserve consideration because it's just a little kid's game or whatever. I'm going to consider any game this year that I have played and beat is going to go for a qualification for Game of the Year 2020. And I think this is the only way it's fair. Straight up, if you're going to try and consider games that are making an impact on this industry, games that are really being qualified as something that managed to be big and epic, I think that we have to take a look at the big picture. This includes indie games, this includes all sorts of stuff. But I am going to say I'm only going to count games that were released in 2020. They have to have been released this year. So even though I love Among Us, I even did an Among Us costume for Halloween, I'm not going to consider Among Us for any awards because personally, that came out in 2018. And while it is a fun game, yes, it's been a fun surprise, to me, it does not qualify for any awards in 2020. I mean, that's just the way I'm going to measure it. You could be happy, you could be mad, but that's just the way it works. I think that this year has been good, but if we're going to be looking at stuff, I think it's important that we kind of consider everything that was released this year. So yes, I am going to be counting remakes, I'm going to be counting remasters. Demon's Souls Remake? Yeah, that's right. To me, that is a new game. Like, I've beaten it in the past, but the new game is so fresh, it's so colorful, it's got such nice refinements, I'm going to be considering that a new game. Godfall, Spider-Man Miles Morales, even though some people are considering that standalone DLC. Anything that was released in 2020 will be considered, and that is the way I want to do it. If you have any feedback on this, if you think that these rules or whatever should be warped or changed, I'm very, very open to feedback. Maybe there are some games that you guys think should be disqualified, extra things that should be qualified. I'm very, very open to feedback because this, I don't know, as the channel just keeps exploding, I want to make sure that the top 10 games of the year I want to make sure that there's something that you guys think really reflect the year of 2020. But this has just been a little off the cuff talk because there has been a lot of debate this year about what is or is not Game of the Year, and honestly, I think that this is a good thing. I've said this before, but with the launch of the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, I have a feeling that gaming is getting more mainstream than ever. Like, this entire medium, the entire industry is growing and expanding now at an exponential rate, and I feel like talking about the best games, celebrating the greatest successes, it's cool, it's different, it's important. This is now going to become, in its own way, the Oscars or the MTV Music Awards or whatever. Like, I still feel like things are getting bigger and better and more mainstream attention, and I just want to make sure that we're celebrating the very best games in the very best way. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Oh man, I'm excited. But, you know, we're still got a couple more weeks until Cyberpunk, and then I can finally film that freaking video about the best games. We will be talking about the worst games on probably like December 1st. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.